Hello. Hello, random internet person. How are you doing? Welcome. I'm sorry if it's a little bit hot here. I don't know if you were trying to stumble onto the Antichrist channel and end up in hell, but here we are. Also, don't try to look me up or verify that. See, look, we have fire. I'm real. Spawn of Satan here at your service, here to talk all things horror movies. This YouTube channel is where I lead my cult of fellow horror nerds, my little maggots, my little demons, my little children of the darkness. By cult, I really just mean like terminally online horror obsessed adult nerds. But if you're down with that, if you're self-aware, if you own that, then my cult is the place to be. And it's the easiest cult to join in the whole world because there are no like membership dues or anything. All you have to do is click subscribe. And then it really helps to click the like button and click the notification bell. That way you never miss our next meeting. In today's meeting, you might want a notebook and pencil because you'll probably want to take a lot of notes. We are talking about all of the most anticipated horror movies releasing in 2024. After 2023 was kind of an abysmal year, there's, I think, a lot more to look forward to in 2024. This felt like more of a filler year, but I feel like we're kind of getting back to business with next year's lineup. So I'll go in order of release dates that we know so far, and then I'll top it off with all of the many movies that we don't have release dates for yet. I think that we're probably all aware of Night Swim, which is releasing January 5th of next year. It's starring Carrie Condon, so that kind of excites me. I also think the premise is somewhat interesting. A woman swimming in her pool at night is terrorized by an evil spirit. We don't get a lot of pool horror these days, so that's one that I have on my watch list. Up next on the docket that I could find is something called Founders Day, which is releasing January 19th. It's described as a bold political slasher. A small town is shaken by a series of ominous killings in the days leading up to a heated mayoral election. I don't know why, but I get the sense that it's going to be kind of similar to Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. It's just a feeling I get. I can't really explain that. Also, apologies, but I could not find posters for a good majority of these movies, especially the ones that don't have release dates yet, so you'll just have to bear with me reading off of my monitor for a lot of the video. The next surefire release date that we have is on February 2nd with a movie called Imaginary. A woman returns to her childhood home to discover that the imaginary friend she left behind is very real and unhappy that she abandoned him. It excites me that this is starring DeWanda Wise, but that's kind of the only thing about it that I'm excited for. To me, this just comes across as like a very, very generic kind of horror movie, one that we would have gotten more like 10 years ago instead of in 2024. What is cool though is that it looks like Bear McCreary is gonna be the composer for this film. He's composed some very, very iconic horror movies, so I mean, just take a look at his little filmography here. It's pretty nuts. So that's exciting at least. Next up, we've got Lisa Frankenstein on February 9th, a coming of rage love story about a teenager and her crush who happens to be a corpse. The cast of this, all I care about is Carla Gugino and Catherine Newton. This does star Cole Sprouse, who is kind of famously a controversial figure, but he plays like the undead crush. I don't even know if he has any lines because, oh, another thing. Some of these movies do have trailers and I will be showing clips, but I don't personally watch the trailers myself. I'm not even gonna watch them all the way through for this editing process. I'm just gonna like select the least spoilery clips that I can because they just always give too much away. I feel like they always spoil the first act twist. I am not a proponent of trailers. I don't like them, so please, just so I don't have to answer everybody's question, avoid asking me, have you seen this trailer, in the comments, because the answer is no. Okay, up next, I don't know if you consider the new Ghostbusters to be horror, but I feel like it's kind of horror adjacent. It's gateway horror, horror for kids, whatever, you know. They have horror elements. It's literally ghost is in the title, right? In this one, they are digging their heels deeper into the nostalgia well by taking us back to New York. This is also a movie that I don't really care about. I don't even know if I'm gonna see it because I hated the other one so much. I thought it was so bad, so cringy. The writing was terrible. Any moment where the old Ghostbusters showed up, it was just like, hey, remember this guy? Remember this guy? It did absolutely nothing for me, and I love the original Ghostbusters. So yeah, this time around, apparently they're trying to save the world from a second ice age. Next up on April 5th, we are getting The First Omen. A young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, but encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. Oh my god, is this fucking play about me? No, I'm just playing, but I also am not too hyped on this one. I've only seen the original Omen one time, and that was was years and years back, so I'm really due for a rewatch. This also just feels like very cash grabby to me, but I'm just looking at the poster right now, and it does look very kind of gothic and stylish, which happened to be the only thing that The Nun 2 had going for it, and was the only reason why I was able to sit through that entire movie. So maybe, if nothing else, it'll be pretty to look at. Then these next two I lumped together, even though one of them apparently is releasing in January, but we don't have an official release date somehow, so I'm kind of doubting we're actually getting it in January. But that would be Your Monster, which is one of the 2 monster movies that Melissa Barrera is starring in. In Your Monster, after her life falls apart, soft-spoken actress Laura Franco finds her voice again when she meets a terrifying yet weirdly charming monster living in her closet. It's a rom-com about falling in love with your inner rage. I think that sounds super fun, and I lumped it together with this next one because I also want to talk about the untitled monster thriller for Universal Pictures. This is also starring Melissa, and it's being directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette from the 2 most recent Scream films. So they are teaming up again. It's also starring Dan Stevens, who I feel like is kind of an underrated actor. Did you see him in The Rental? Oh my god, it's also starring Catherine Newton. Oh my god, that's news to me, but it's releasing on April 19th, 4/20 weekend. I'm super excited about that too, but the plot is still currently under wraps. Though a lot of people are speculating that it is going to be a Bride of Frankenstein type film, so I'm hoping that's the case. In which case, Catherine Newton would be starring in 2 Frankenstein-related films next year. That's, you know, more power to her. Then on April 25th, we have a horror movie called Immaculate, which is starring Sydney Sweeney, so I thought you might be interested. Cecilia, a woman of devout faith, is warm welcomed. Sometimes these like early IMDb synopses are not well written. Anyways, she's welcomed to the picture-perfect Italian countryside where she is offered a new role at an illustrious convent. But it becomes clearer to Cecilia that her new home harbors dark and horrifying secrets. So more religious horror, yay! I don't know why I said it like that. I'm kind of indifferent, I guess, to religious horror. I don't usually care about it that much. It just doesn't really do anything for me, you know what I mean? Then on June 7th, we have a movie called The Watchers. It follows Mina, who's a 28-year-old artist, as she gets stranded in an extensive, immaculate forest in Western Ireland. After finding shelter, she becomes trapped alongside 3 strangers, stalked by mysterious creatures each night. This is really exciting because it stars Dakota Fanning and Georgina Campbell. I love that Georgina is staying in horror and that Dakota Fanning is kind of like coming back to it. I haven't seen her in anything in a while. I think the last thing that I saw her in was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that was basically just a cameo. Like, she was barely there. Also, the fact that it takes place in Ireland, I feel like I really want more travel horror. We haven't really seen a lot of that lately. Then it looks like we have 2 movies releasing on June 28th, the first being Horoscope. A group of college friends begin dying in ways connected to their fortunes after getting their horoscopes read. I'm not really familiar with anybody involved, neither it looks like 2 directors or any of the cast, so I'm assuming this is probably going to be one of those straight to Amazon Prime type movies that will still be kind of fun. Also releasing that day to theaters, we have A Quiet Place Day 1, which confuses me because in the first A Quiet Place sequel, the opening of that movie took place on day 1, didn't it? So I don't know if they're gonna flash back to that and then somehow connect us to Lupita Nyong'o's character. Yeah, she's starring in it. That's super exciting. But otherwise, I'm not super pumped about it. A Quiet Place was a movie that I felt like did not need a sequel or any type of world building because it's essentially just like The Walking Dead, you know, but with these monsters. That doesn't really interest me. What interested me so much about the first one was the whole family dynamic, and I feel like they stripped so much of what was good away from the first movie in the sequel. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but why did all the characters suddenly turn so stupid? When did the stakes get lowered and suddenly you can make a lot more noise than they could before? I will be seated for Lupita Nyong'o and Lupita Nyong'o only. Then it looks like nothing is for sure releasing around my birthday yet, which is July 6th, but whatever. Also, yes, I know that you were wondering if I was conceived in October, and I was. Anyways, up next we have a movie called Trap coming out on August 2nd. This is M. Night Shyamalan's next horror film. We don't have a plot or a poster or anything like that yet, but we do know that it's starring Josh Hartnett, one of my favorite boys. He is a scream king in his own right. I mean, The Faculty, got 30 Days of Night. He's in Halloween H2O. He plays Laurie Strode's son. Like, come on. He was just fantastic in Oppenheimer, so the fact that he's coming back to horror, I love that. What I don't love, though, oftentimes is American remakes of international films, which is what we have up next. Speak No Evil is coming out on August 9th. This movie may have a saving grace, though, because it stars James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis, so maybe we'll be be in good hands. James McAvoy honestly is such a redeeming quality of this remake. Like, he is the only reason why I think, okay, maybe I will indeed sit through this. And generally, I'm not a fan of how American remakes tend to kind of water down and make international stories a little less intense. A lot of people feel that way about Ring You and The Ring, even though I love The Ring. The Goodnight Mommy remake, ooh. And the original Speak No Evil, which I believe was a Danish film, was so intense. It was such a feel-bad movie. It was so mean-spirited. So this is one of the few cases where I'm like, you know what? Actually, maybe I'd be okay with them watering it down a little bit and changing up the story as well, because a lot of times it's like, you know, remakes are so annoying. Sometimes it's just a shot-for-shot remake and we don't want it. So maybe by watering it down, it'll change up the story a little bit. Maybe it will have a reason to exist. On a much more exciting note, we have Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez, who brought us Evil Dead from 2013. If anyone can give a franchise a shot in the arm, I believe that it is Fede Alvarez. It's also starring Kaylee Spaney, who recently just brought the house down in Priscilla. So that's super fun. It's about young people from a distant world who must face the most terrifying life form in the universe. Pretty basic, kind of just sounds like a remake, but I'm down. I'm super down. Then on September 6th, we have Beetlejuice 2. I'm not super big on the original Beetlejuice, but everything about this new one has just really been exciting me, especially considering that Willem Dafoe and Jenna Ortega are part of the cast, and everybody returning, of course. I love Winona Ryder, but I still don't think that we know too much about the plot. We just know that Jenna Ortega is playing Winona Ryder's character's daughter, and that's so fitting. Like, they actually look alike. I do wonder, though, if she's basically just gonna be playing Wednesday Addams again, which she already has done for Tim Burton, as we know. But honestly, I'm fine with that. Everything that Jenna Ortega touches turns to gold. Even if the movie she's in is so bad, like, just her presence means that it's not gonna be a total shit show. Not that I was thinking it was gonna be a shit show, but you know what I mean. Anyway, then we have an untitled Monkey Paw Productions movie coming out on September 27th. It's supposedly gonna be a horror thriller, and we don't even know the plot, but we do know the release date, so, you know, weird. I didn't realize that Jordan Peele's company was putting out 2 horror movies next year, but I can never have enough of that, so that's fine. We also apparently don't know who's directing, who's acting, like, we don't know anything about it. But we have a release date. That's just strange to me. Though it might be the double release weekend of the entire year, because you know what else comes out that day? Saw 11. Ooh, Saw 11. I'm so excited that Saw is back. I was way too young when the original franchise was coming out, like year after year, just boom, boom, boom. And I've always said, wow, what a time to be alive. And now I may be alive for another such era. I'm also considering doing like a predictions bingo card for that movie. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. I've done that in the past for Scream 5 and 6. I think I also did it for Halloween Ends. Yeah, so let me know. I recently did a whole deep dive of the franchise, so I'm geared up to be able to do that. Then a few weeks after that, on October 18th, we're getting Smile 2. It's being directed by Parker Finn yet again, and the plot is still under wraps. So we don't even know who's coming back. What I'm hoping for most is that now Kyle Gallner could maybe be the main character. He has always deserved his own horror franchise where he can be the star, because he is such a Scream king. This year alone, he released, what, 2 or 3 horror movies? There was The Passenger and Mother May I, and I swear there was something else. Maybe I'm just thinking of Smile, but that was last year. Anyways, that's what I want. So if anybody's listening, just cast Kyle Gallner and I will be seated. Hi, I'm editing. I have a few interjections. Of course, while I'm editing, it's announced on Bloody Disgusting that Naomi Scott is going to be the lead of Smile 2, Heartbreaking. Not because of her. I actually really like her. I've loved her since I was a kid because I liked her in Lemonade Mouth. I'm just bummed about Kyle Gallner. Aside from that, I guess my eyes just kind of glazed over the next one because the next one in the list was Terrifier 3. But between Smile 2 and Terrifier 3 was a Wolfman movie directed by Lee Whannell starring Ryan Gosling. Do you understand how seated for that I will be? I haven't seen that announced anywhere, and if it's not real, I may commit an act of violence. And also, it's a double feature with Terrifier 3 apparently on October 25th. 2024 is gonna be our year. On October 25th, we are getting Terrifier 3. If you want to see my most unusual reaction to the teaser trailer, you can find that on Patreon Patreon. I also unpacked some of the drama surrounding this movie. So yeah, join us over there. Join the High Council of the Haunted Hippie Cult over on Patreon. I'm just so excited about this because I'm glad that they're not limiting themselves to keeping Art the Clown as a Halloween killer. He doesn't have to be. Like, they could keep making the Terrifier movies for every single holiday and I would be seated. Because there's just so many different types of like knickknacks and symbols that are associated with each holiday. I'm kind of hoping that even though it's going to be set around Christmas time, maybe Art the Clown will slice someone in half by wedging a menorah into their abdomen. I think that'd be super fun. Obviously, I also want to see a kill with a Christmas tree star. Although, oh wait, no, they did that in Violent Night last year. But there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with different types of ornaments. I'm just really looking forward to it. We also just got the news that Lauren Lavera has signed on to return. She seems so great. She seems great and I wish that she was my friend. Anyways, then I think we're jumping to December. Of course, the plot is being kept under wraps still and we don't even know the name and it's still in pre-production, so I don't know how much I trust this release date, but Jordan Peele's next horror film that he's directing is releasing on Christmas Day. So I have to wonder if it's gonna be maybe like New Year's themed or something. I have to imagine that it's got some sort of holiday theme. I feel like Jordan Peele has not yet entered the realm of creating his own iconic franchises. I kind of like that he doesn't do that, but I do see him venturing into that in the future, so I wonder if that's what this is gonna be. We did get Thanksgiving this year, which is kind of like the first super iconic, you know, mainstream Thanksgiving slasher, and obviously that is continuing. We're getting Thanksgiving too. We don't really have anything like that for New Year's. There are a few little one-offs. I'm sure that there were one or two from the 80s of New Year's horror, but we don't have anything super solid. We don't have a franchise. So that's what I would love for it to be. Probably not gonna be that, but I don't know. I do wonder since it's releasing on Christmas. Now, of course, what you've all been waiting for. This movie surprisingly still doesn't have a release date, even though it just went through its first round of test screenings and everybody seems to love it. Ty West's Maxine. Who isn't excited for this? I've already talked about this movie a lot. I regularly will go live and talk about horror movie news. So literally, I think the day after they announced the cast for Maxine, I went live and I just rambled all about it. So I'm not gonna do that again today, but just know that I'm hyped. We also are getting a new installment in the Silent Hill franchise that, I'll be honest, I'm not very familiar with. I've only seen the first movie. When a mysterious letter calls him back to Silent Hill in search of his lost love, James finds a once recognizable town and encounters terrifying figures both familiar and new and begins to question his own sanity. Again, to me, it kind of sounds like a remake, but what do I know? I don't know. I don't know anything about the games or the franchise. So we're also apparently getting a Dacker Montgomery horror film. It's called Faces of Death and it's currently in post-production. So we are likely to receive it next year. A woman employed as a website content moderator comes across a series of violent videos reproducing death scenes from a film. That feels very, very timely. Like, I wonder if she's gonna be some sort of TikTok content moderator. I would also bet that Dacker Montgomery is gonna be the weirdo in the videos. How much you wanna bet? Then it looks like we're getting a remake of the 1986 horror classic Witchboard, which I'll be honest, this is the first I have ever heard of it, but it is starring Jamie Campbell Bower, and I know you've heard that name before. So it looks like some of the Stranger Things stars are getting their moment next year. It looks like we're also getting another Georgina Campbell movie. It's gonna be called Psycho Killer. They are currently filming. Described as a crime horror thriller, a police officer tracks a killer after her husband, a highway patrolman, becomes one of his victims. Also, I need to kind of just blow through these because I'm gonna be talking about probably like 60 movies today, so can't linger too much. Apparently, Halle Berry is also making her long-awaited return to horror. I don't know if you guys have seen Gothica, but whew, that's a heavy watch. She's starring in something called Never Let Go. It's about a family that's been haunted by an evil spirit for years. Their safety and their surroundings come into question when one of the children questions if the evil is real. I wonder if the evil is gonna be real, you guys. Now this one, I'm not familiar with anybody involved, but it is in post-production, so it's looking like we will see it next year. Out come the wolves. At a cabin deep in the wilderness, a weekend of hunting turns to mayhem and a fight for survival when a pack of wolves attack a man, his female best friend, and her fiance. Ooh, sounds like kind of maybe a little weird love triangle situation. Sounds dramatic, I'm down. Next up is one of the movies I am the most excited for. Nosferatu. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is currently in post-production. Now the release date is not on IMDb yet, but we did learn recently that it is releasing on Christmas Day. So I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that gonna be the biggest like duo release weekend of the year? Getting a Jordan Peele and Robert Eggers horror movie on the same day? I know that I'll be doing the doubleheader, but you already know about that. We talked about that a lot in one of my most most recent horror news live streams. Next up, Jenny Slate is going to be starring in a horror movie called Mindful. When her husband unexpectedly passes away while using the Mindful app for meditation, Angela, who has grave doubts about the new wellness fad, discovers that paranormal forces have merged with the technology. And since it is Jenny Slate, I can only assume that it's probably going to be a dark comedy, and I'm on board with that. I wish that more comedians would venture into horror. Then yet again, I know I talked about this movie last year. It's called Rabbit, 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 but it's apparently still in pre-production with plot kept under wraps, so I don't know what's going on with that. This next one interested me because we don't know really anything about it except for the plot, and the plot seems very paradoxical. Listen to this. A neuroscientist is recruited by the Vatican to investigate a bizarre series of supernatural events. I would wager a guess that this is coming off of the success of The Pope's Exorcist. Are we getting the sequel to that next year? Maybe 2025. I feel like exorcism horror is kind of making a comeback, which I'm not really rooting for, but if the main character is a neuroscientist, then maybe I'll be down. Unless they're doing the whole thing where they turn a scientist into a believer, then no thank you. We're also getting a new Darren Aronofsky film next year, which normally I'd be super pumped about. Robert Eggers, Jordan Peele, and Darren Aronofsky all releasing horror movies in the same year. I mean, sign me up. But this is a movie starring Jared Leto, and I wish that the girlies in Hollywood would just get a grip and just let him go. So I guess release your grip, actually. I don't want it. I will not be seated. I'm not watching a movie starring Jared Leto. Then we are getting a movie titled Hell House, and there's a little like 4 parentheses next to it on IMDb. I don't know why. Because to me, I'm like, okay, so then that's another movie in the Hell House LLC franchise, right? But we already have 4 of those. Although the one that just came out was more of a prequel, right? So I guess this would make sense as a number 4. It follows the complicated relationship between small town high school peers Dawn and Michaela in the Deep South on the eve of a religious-themed Halloween attraction or Hell House grand opening, and the various townspeople who try to keep the two apart with disastrous results. Okay, no, this can't have anything to do with Hell House, can it? It's starring Stephanie Scott though, so that's cool. I like her. Sorry, I'm reacting to all of this right now. I haven't really done any research, so sorry. David F. Sandberg, who directed a movie called Lights Out. You remember that viral moment? He's releasing a horror movie called Below. Fresh out of a spell in prison, a man attempts to set his life right by working a mysterious job that requires him to seek out life forms hidden among us. That sounds super fun. I'm extremely down for that. I liked Lights Out. I have been waiting on another David F. Sandberg film. Next up, Finn Wittrock from American Horror Story is getting into film in a movie called Don't Move, which is in post-production described as a horror thriller. It follows a seasoned killer as he injects a grieving woman with a paralytic agent. She must run, fight, and hide before her body shuts down. Oh, Jesus Christ. That sounds depressing. Okay, cool. Yet again, I have to talk about the movie Dust Bunny, which I talked about in my most anticipated of 2023 because it stars Mads Mikkelsen, one of my favorite actors on the entire planet. It also apparently stars Sigourney Weaver. I don't know what her role in it is, but it's about an 8-year-old girl who asks her scheming neighbor for help in killing the monster under her bed that she thinks ate her family. It sounds so weird. It kind of sounds like a dark comedy, and it stars some amazing people. It does say that it's currently filming, so that's the first update that I have seen on it. It's also directed by Brian Fuller, so he and Mads Mikkelsen are teaming up again for, I don't know, I think the first time since Hannibal. That is just, it's deeply promising. Mackenzie Davis is staying pretty booked and busy. She's also starring in The Damning of a Country Merchant. In 1910 Indiana, evil seeps into the lives of a shopkeeper and his family after his wife pursues an impassioned affair with a visitor who has taken up residence in their home. I'm usually up for period piece horror. I'll usually check out any type of period piece horror. Now, Melissa Barrera is starring in yet another horror movie coming out next year, this time alongside Nicholas Hoult, another Scream King, called The One, and it's described as horror/reality TV. Taylor makes a last-ditch effort to find love by becoming a contestant on a reality dating show, but she begins to feel the artifice of the show fade and the game becomes terrifyingly real. That sounds really fun. Melissa's career, the future looks bright. We are also getting the next Zach Crager horror film releasing next year. We've talked about this a lot on my channel because I'm very excited because it's starring Pedro Pascal. I'm sorry, Jose Pedro Balmaceda Pascal. An interrelated multi-story horror epic about the the disappearance of high school students in a small town. I think that's the first time that I have learned about the plot of the movie too. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm also somehow excited for a new Conjuring film. I never thought I'd see the day. That franchise has just kind of fallen off for me. Like, the quality keeps getting worse, but The Conjuring Last Rites is starring not only Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, but also Thaisa Farmiga. The sisters, they're reuniting, or I guess I shouldn't say reuniting, they are uniting. For the first time in this franchise, we are gonna get both the sisters on screen. And I don't know how much sense it's gonna make because their characters exist in like different decades, so maybe they'll age up Thaisa? What do you think? I do have a feeling it's gonna be kind of stupid, but I feel like that's gonna be part of the charm of it, because how is it not gonna feel like an Avengers level event? The fact that all these people that kick ghostly demon ass are gonna be in a movie together for the first time, I mean, come on. Just really hoping that it doesn't have the same vibe as The Exorcist Believer, because that was corny. Anyway, more excitingly, we're getting a movie called The Monkey, directed by Oz Perkins and starring Theo James, which is a pairing I never really expected. When twin brothers Bill and Hal find their father's old monkey toy in the attic, a series of gruesome deaths start. The siblings decide to throw the toy away and move on with their lives, growing apart over the years. Interesting, very interesting, a horror movie that spans decades. Historically, I loved Gretel and Hansel. I thought that I was gonna become like an Oz Perkins type girly, but then I saw The Blackcoat's Daughter and was bored to death, so I feel like this one could go either way. Next up, we are talking about Salem's Lot for, I think, the third year in a row. We've had some updates this year. For example, we know that Stephen King has seen it, and I think that he had positive words to say. We know that it's completed, it has had several different release dates, and now it doesn't anymore. It's just listed as a 2024 film, so I don't know. Maybe 2024 will finally be the year. We've also talked about this next one on the channel before, but it's called All My Friends Are Dead, starring Jojo Siwa. I am really curious, so I may be seated. I might be. Also, apparently, we're getting an untitled Cloverfield sequel. We're also getting Thread and Insidious Tale, so more franchise movies. Kumail Nanjiani is starring in the Insidious spin-off movie, as I understand it, and so that's kind of interesting to me. It's also starring Mandy Moore, so that'll be interesting. Joe Kinnaman, who I know best from the Suicide Squad movies, is starring in what sounds like a sci-fi alien horror movie, so I'm super excited about that. It's called They Found Us. During a camping trip in the Utah wilderness to heal their broken relationship, a father and daughter must fight against a hostile extraterrestrial life form to prevent their abduction to an unknown and terrifying alien world. That sounds really good to me. I just hope that he's not yet again playing kind of like the cool guy action movie hero, because I was a little tired. That gets a little bit boring to me when male actors just like do that over and over. So I'm hoping that's not the vibe. I hope that it's a little bit more fun, maybe a little bit more Lovecraftian. Maybe it'll have like a Color Out of Space vibe. We're also getting a new Barbara Crampton horror film, and my god, talk about a working actress. For decades and decades, like, I just wish that she got more mainstream recognition. I know that we know her, but she's just so incredible, and I love that she has stayed in the genre. It's a movie called Little Bites that's currently filming. In a desperate attempt to protect her 10-year-old daughter, a young widow allows a nightmarish monster to slowly eat her alive. Oh my god, gross. That sounds disgusting. I would be willing to bet that that's probably gonna come to Shudder. Barbara Crampton is a bit of a Shudder darling, but I don't know. We don't know where it's releasing. Then we're getting a movie called Heretic, which is starring Hugh Grant and Sophie Thatcher. She was just in The Boogeyman this year, and she's also in Yellow Jackets. She's so good in that. So I'm really glad that not only is she getting more opportunity, but that she is staying in the genre. The plot is under wraps, but it's rumored to follow two young women of religion who are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man. Not only is she starring in that, but she's starring in another movie called Companion that's also starring Jack Quaid and Lucas Gage. It's described as a horror sci-fi thriller that's in pre-production, but we don't know the plot. Then of course we are getting The Strangers chapters 1, 2, and 3, and how they could stretch this out into a trilogy that's all releasing the same year, I don't know. How do you stretch out a home invasion? I'm assuming that there's gonna be some type of crazy lore, that it's gonna be like a brand new sort of thing for the franchise, but I don't know, because I've only ever seen the first movie and I'm just not a home invasion type person. I have a feeling that this could really not go well. Am I alone in that? I don't know. I think they're just really trying to do the ex-Pearl Maxine thing, and I don't know. It's weird though, because on The Strangers chapter 3, it's described as a remake trilogy of the Strangers films, and I don't really think that's what it is. But I don't know. The synopsis of chapter 1 does sound pretty much just like the original movie. So I guess that's what it could be. That sounds so boring. Anyways, this next one absolutely doesn't. We've talked about this. It's called Long Legs, starring Nicolas Cage and Micah Monroe. My faves. FBI agent Lee Harker is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case that takes unexpected turns, revealing evidence of the occult. I mean, if you know me, if you know this witchy little antichrist, you know that I don't think that there are enough occult movies in the world, okay? Especially not in modern times. I'm so excited for this, and apparently it's completed, so we're definitely getting it next year. Although I guess the same could have been said for Salem's Lot last year, and we all know what's happening with that, but I have faith. Then apparently 50 Cent is starring in a horror movie called Skill House, which I think that we all know is gonna be a parody on The Hype House, but that's such old news. Like, I don't know how that's still gonna be relevant, but it's a dark satire of social media and influencer culture, unflinching take on fame and what new celebrities are willing to do to attain it. I just don't think it's gonna be that good. I don't think it's gonna be very modern. I think they might be just a little bit too late on that. We are getting a lot of influencer type horror lately, especially on Shudder, and I don't mind that at all. I think there is a lot of ground to cover. This just sounds like it's gonna be a parody of The Hype House, which, when did that even come? That was years ago. So anyways, moving on, Shelby Oaks. This is the second time that I'm talking about this movie, or rather the second year in a row, because that was supposed to release this year, and I don't know what happened. I don't keep up with Chris Stuckman, but that's his horror movie. Somehow he managed to get Camille Sullivan and Keith David to star in it. Yes, I am jealous, because I don't know, the plot of it sounds really generic. A woman's desperate search for her long-lost sister falls into obsession upon realizing that the imaginary demon from their childhood may have been real. Oh my gosh, past trauma. The real trauma was the trauma that we traumatized along the trauma. I don't know, that's getting really tired to me. I don't need that in horror anymore, at least not for a while. Then we've got another Pete Davidson horror movie coming out called The Home. Follows Max, who realizes that the residents and caretakers in the retirement home he started working at hide sinister secrets. I'm up for that. I really am. I like retirement home horror. If you guys haven't seen American Dream, it stars Jenna Ortega, and I enjoyed it. Not fantastic, but definitely worth a watch. This is also the second year in a row that I'm talking about Time Cut, which I'm still excited for. A high school student accidentally travels back to 2003 and decides to stop the serial killer who murdered her sister. This does kind of sound a lot like Totally Killer, and so it's a little bit of a bummer that it's going to be releasing next year, because I think it was initially supposed to come out before Totally Killer, and on the poster it says it's a Netflix film, so I think it's coming to Netflix. But I don't know. It says that it's completed, but we don't really have any updates. That reminds me of Cuckoo, the Hunter Schafer, I think it was a horror thriller, right? And Neon announced that it was coming to theaters in 2023, and ever since then it's been crickets. So that is also another movie that I'm talking about for the second year in a row. Where is it? We want it. Hunter Schafer is having a huge moment right now. I don't know what they're waiting for. Seems like by now that film should be finished, right? But what do I know? Now this next one has already premiered this year, but only at a horror festival. So hopefully it's getting its wide release in 2023. But that'll be Failure, which is a Ted Raimi thriller. But it follows James, who is played by Ted Raimi, who has a big debt with the bank and is given 1 hour to choose between financial ruin or murder in order to protect his family. I think it should be pretty good. I'm excited for it. Yet another movie that we have to talk about for a second year in a row is Night Bitch, starring Amy Adams. I don't know what is happening with this movie. Originally, I think that it said it was going to be a Netflix release, and now it's apparently going to be a Hulu release, but it's a psychological horror movie about this woman that thinks she's turning into a dog, and it's starring Amy Adams. Like, what if this could finally be her comeback? I want it. I want it yesterday. I don't know what's going on. If you couldn't tell, these last few movies are ones that we haven't gotten updates on in a while, or I've already talked about them and just I don't know what the hell's going on, including with this one called Booger that apparently was released in 2023, but it's not available anywhere online. After the death of her best friend Izzy, Anna focuses all her attention on Booger, the stray cat which she and Izzy took in. When Booger bites her, she begins to undergo a strange transformation. And it stars Heather Matarazzo, our queen from Scream. Always wanting to see more of her. Like, I want to watch this movie. I'm hoping it'll get its wide release in 2024. Our second to last movie that we really don't have any details about is VHS 7. Not that we really need any details. It's a pretty surefire thing that it will be releasing to Shudder next year because they've been doing this annually since I think 2021. And they announced that the focus of this one will be on sci-fi horror, which is great, but I kind of thought that already was the focus of the franchise, or at least a few of the last installments have definitely had more of a sci-fi feeling to them, at least with several of the segments, right? So I don't really know how this is going to be different, but I'm always up for sci-fi horror. Then the last movie on on our list for today is also going to be a Shudder exclusive. It's called In a Violent Nature, which is about to premiere at Sundance. Apparently, the vision cuts between the atmospheric creeping dread of Skinamarink and the shocking gore of When Evil Lurks. That's a really high bar to set, so I hope you're not getting me super hyped for nothing. I think those vibes are kind of a match made in heaven. This is described as a slasher, so I'm extremely excited. And last, but certainly not least, yours truly is releasing a horror film next year. It's titled Liked. We are almost 4/5 of the way to our fundraising goal, so if you'd like to donate and help us out, that'll be linked down below at the top of the description box. If you're not sure what me and my team can do, then you can also check out my first short horror film that's also linked down below. It's titled Somnum. We're getting really close to production, so we could use all the help that we could get. And of course, biggest kisses to everyone that's already donated. Now, I know that there's probably a lot of movies that I might have missed because, I don't know, things pop up all the time. And hopefully, as release dates are announced for the many movies of this video that we don't have them for yet, I will be hosting many more horror news live streams on my channel in the future this coming year. So we'll talk about all of the updates as they come, so I hope that you subscribe and stick around. Come on, join my cult. Hasn't this been cozy? You stuck here for the entire video. But more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye!